Welcome, everybody, to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My name is Jake Ray, the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we are proud to bring you the first ever Before the Snap program here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the most inspiring place on earth. This series is dedicated to gaining a greater insight into professional careers in and around the NFL. And today we are greatly to be joined for the first one by Clint Oldenburg. Clint is currently the gameplay producer for the famous video game that everybody knows, Madden NFL franchise, based out of EA Sports Tiburon Studios in Orlando, Florida. Madden NFL games serve more than 40 million gamers annually. Before becoming a producer, Clint was a game designer for the previous 7 years after starting as a design intern in 2012. Prior to joining EA Sports, Clint spent 5 years in the NFL, playing offensive lineman for 6 different teams after being drafted by the New England Patriots in the 5th round of the 2007 NFL draft. He ended his NFL career with the Washington football team. He graduated from Colorado State and holds honors there in 2006. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in technical journalism and was a team captain and all-conference selection on the Colorado State University football team. And we'll get to Clint's opening remarks here in a second. But I want to talk a little bit first about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Our mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values that we promote and are going to be talking about today are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And I can't wait to see the questions that we get today. We're streaming on Facebook Live, so if you're watching us, make sure if you're a student, make sure you put your name, what school you're watching from, and your question here for Clint, and we'll try our best to make it a part of the program today. Before we get started, just a few quick thank yous. First, I want to thank you, Clint, for everything that you do for the game of football as a whole, and even for us here at the Hall of Fame. And everybody watching, we'll see here later when we go to the museum that we have some Madden stuff actually here on display. I would like to thank teachers, administrators, professors, and everyone else who opened their classroom today for us to come in and talk a little bit about all the different types of careers there are in and around not only the NFL, but all of sports. Lastly, I'd like to thank all of our students tuning in, from students of all ages who are looking for their career path to take, those in college looking to gain an insight to what they may want to do after their schooling is over, and even to young professionals and professionals who are tuning in to maybe learn some tips and tricks to better their careers. We want to thank you all for tuning in. And lastly, like I said, if you're watching on Facebook Live, make sure you comment with your name, what school you're from, and your question. And like I said, we'll try our best to get that into you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce everybody to Clint Oldenburg, who works with EA Sports Madden NFL as the gameplay producer. Clint, welcome to Before the Snap today.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
No problem. We want to thank you for tuning in. We want to thank you for being a part of this program. And I hope everybody tuning in today is going to learn a little bit about your career. So we'll jump right in. And our first question is, as a gameplay producer, because, I don't have a full understanding of what a gameplay producer does, especially with Madden NFL. So can you give us a 10,000-foot view on, what your career is and things you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. That's a question I get pretty often. What does a producer actually do? So let's start at the top with the team that I'm on, the gameplay team. What we are responsible for is everything that happens between the white lines, the football, basically. So the schemes, concepts, fundamentals of the game, everything you're seeing from tackling, passing, catching, that is what the gameplay team builds. As a producer, my primary role is to run that team and facilitate my team members to be successful. I'm also responsible for driving my team in alignment towards the creative vision of the creative director. What all of this means really from that 10,000-foot view is more or less I'm kind of like the general manager of the gameplay football team here at Madden. And at the end of the day, I am ultimately responsible for the quality of the gameplay that we put out to our millions of players around the world.
Now, not a lot of people know, and if you've seen some of the graphics that have gone out for this program, a part of your job, and maybe what you might be known for most, is the ratings adjuster. And a lot of people can kind of assume, what that means, but can you kind of dive in onto that specific part of your job? And I know there's been some stuff that just went out this week as part of Bleacher Report's Gridiron with Adam Lefkoe and some of the current NFL stars. So what does the ratings adjuster part of your job incorporate?
Yeah, that's another fan favorite, being a ratings adjuster. That's kind of my side gig. So what we have here at Madden, we actually have a ratings adjuster team. Consists of about 10 folks that are already on the Madden development team in some capacity. And we put this team together and reserved it for people who are the most passionate, most knowledgeable about the game. And we all help inform the ratings. We have two primary guys. Their names are Dustin and Andre. They're the ones actually responsible for inputting the ratings. And the rest of us are there for more sets of eyes. So we watch the film, we look at the scouting reports, and give as much information as a group to make our ratings as authentic as possible. And at the end of the day, we want to accurately represent the NFL players in our game. They're the most important part of our game. And also make the game play the way that we need it to play, so we deliver an authentic and fun experience through those player ratings.
It's got to be a cool position for sure to get to interact with those players. I know there's got to be some back and forth between your staff and the players to see, I want my rating to be this. I'm better than that guy. So I'm sure that's a great piece of the full job with your job there at EA Sports. And I guess my next question would be, I've been to some job fairs. I've never seen a booth by EA Sports or a booth for the game Madden to where I can go become an employee on EA Sports. So can you kind of take us through, starting when you graduated college, what your path was and how you got to your job at EA Sports today?
Sure. My path was a little bit unique because it went through the NFL. But after I graduated, I was fortunate enough to be drafted in the NFL, and I had a 5-year career. It wasn't, I don't think I'm ever going to get a bust there, the Hall of Fame for my career, but I was able to live my dream as an NFL player. And that's really what I had my mindset on since I was a little kid. But as we all know, that's a very competitive business, and eventually you run out of opportunities as a professional athlete. And you still have, more than half your life left after that. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I knew that I wanted to be involved in sports, specifically the NFL, because I love it so much. And so I was looking at different opportunities there. And I also loved gaming. I had a unique passion for gaming, especially Madden. It was a game that I always played. And I came across an internship. Actually, my brother came across an internship with the NCAA football franchise at the time, a game that we used to make. And it seemed like a really great opportunity for me to submit a resume and a cover letter, two things that I had never done in my life prior. And that's all I wanted to get out of it. And if I got an interview, bonus. And as it turns out, I got the interview. I actually got the internship. It was a 16-week internship. And about 3/4 of the way through that, I was offered a full-time position as a designer on Madden.
Awesome. So you mentioned there quickly that you did have, a career in the NFL. And one cool thing about us here at the Hall of Fame is, we're tasked with not only preserving the legacy of every Hall of Famer, all 346, soon to be more Hall of Famers, but every NFL player who was on a roster, on a team. And part of our job here is to preserve that history. And a guy that's great is doing that. His name is John Kendall. So I'm actually going to send it out to our museum. We have Nathan Martin, who's the Youth and Education Coordinator, standing with John Kendall. And he's got some special stuff that he pulled out from our collection here at the Hall of Fame. So Nathan, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Jake, and thanks, Clint, for sending it out here. And I'm here in the Ralph Wilson Research and Preservation Center, standing here with John Kendall. He's the Director of Archives and Football Information. I know he's pulled out a lot of really cool stuff. Some of it's related to Clint, some of it's just related to general football history, but I'm going to pass it off to John and kind of let him show you guys what he has for you.
Thanks, Nathan, for the introduction. Clint, thank you for all that you've done for the game and all that you continue to do for the game. We are, like Nathan said, in the Ralph Wilson Jr. Pro Football Research and Preservation Center. This is an area of the museum that we house over 40 million pages of documents and 6 million photographic images related not just to the history of the game, but really every player, coach, and administrator who helped build the game to what it is today. So I pulled just a sampling of a few things that we collect here, but we have pretty much every book ever written on pro football history. Over 40,000 game programs in our collection. Obviously, you see the J.J. Watt jersey in the back, so we collect jerseys and shoes and footballs, but this is really more about information in the Ralph Wilson Jr. Pro Football Research and Preservation Center. Photographs, scouting reports, correspondences, coaching diagrams, coaching notebooks like this Don Shula notebook behind me. But But Clint, I was able to do some digging through the archives this week and pulled a few things related to your football journey. And so here, we've got your rookie media guide bio from the 2007 season with the New England Patriots. We were able to pull this scouting report from Pro Football Weekly from 2007 here. And I just want to read a short passage for you. Don't want to embarrass you, but this says, plays on his feet, flashes some pop in his punch, plays hard and competes, shows some short area quickness to get position and wall off defenders, and is aggressive to the second level. Shows a solid grasp of the game, very smart, learns like a sponge, plays through injuries, and has a great work ethic. It also notes here that you're a coach's son, Clint. And then the last thing that I pulled related to your journey is something that I find very exciting that we have here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame's collection, and that's the draft cards of every player drafted in the National Football League since 1997. And so when we talk about honoring the heroes of the game, and that's all 26,000 plus that have played one NFL regular season snap in the National Football League, what better way to start their personal archive here in Canton than with their draft card? So this is the card that the team fills out, submits to the league saying, we're selecting this player. So here's your draft card, Clint, 5th round, 171 overall, tackle out of Colorado State. So what better way to start your journey here? And that's preserved right next to this 6th round pick, 199 overall, a guy that you're probably well familiar with protecting here with Tom Brady. So, without further ado, I'll send it back to Nathan. I think he's got a question for you. But once again, thank you, Clint, for being here with us today and all you've done for the game.
Yeah, so seeing all this stuff is just amazing. It's really, really cool to think that, we've got Clint's draft card right next to, arguably the GOAT, Tom Brady's draft card. But our question for you, Clint, is thinking about this NFL experience and how it's preserved here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And you mentioned your internship with EA, but what other networking opportunities were provided to you as an NFL player?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, let me tell you both, thank you for showing that stuff. That was a nice trip down memory lane. That was very special. In terms of networking, obviously in the NFL, there's endless opportunities to network, all the way from inside the actual industry, knowing your coaches, knowing the people in the front office, and then the people outside the NFL, just different contacts with people doing endorsements and things like that. There's all kinds of opportunities for NFL players to further their career after the game. And then NFLPA actually does a fantastic job with some of those outreach programs. And I actually utilized one of those when I was a member of the Washington team. I became a strength and conditioning intern with the Washington Nationals baseball team, which I participated in all 3 years while I was with the Washington football team. And that was just one of many opportunities that were available through the NFL. So I can't encourage you all listening enough to don't be afraid to get involved. If there's something you're really interested in, go out and do it.
I think that segues great into my next question here. We have students of all ages, from high school and beyond, who are listening in today. And, for a student who is in high school who might not have any clue on what they want to do, with their life after their college career, what would some advice you would give to a student in high school to make sure that they end up in a career field that suits them the best?
Well, for me, I think the advice I would give these folks is don't be in a rush. Outside of football, I honestly didn't have any idea what I wanted to be as an adult. And I didn't even choose a major at college until my, 4th semester. So it would have been my 2nd semester of my sophomore year before I actually declared a major. I went to college with an open mind, knowing that my primary decision of going to Colorado State was to play football for Coach Sonny Lubick. And I wanted to just experience all the different electives I had available to me in my first 3 semesters so I could figure out what really resonated with me and what I was interested in. And through that, I found an elective on journalism, and I found out that I actually was a pretty good writer and actually enjoyed writing. And that's how I ultimately decided on my major as a journalism major. So I think my advice is just don't be in a rush. You will figure it out over time. You just have to go in with an open mind.
And it's a great example because you do have a journalism major, but you're not in the field technically or necessarily that uses that degree. So I guess a two-part question is, one is, do you ever see yourself kind of getting back into that journalism field? And two, maybe advice for somebody who might have a degree that they end up not using or using in a different way, like you did, having a journalism degree and then working in the gameplay and the technology world.
Yeah. So what's really interesting about my job now, and even more so when I was a designer, a lot of the skills that I learned as a journalism major had a lot of crossover with video game design. One of the most important things for a video game designer is be able to convey complex ideas, thoughts, concepts to other people in a way that anyone can understand them. Because, for example, an engineer, software engineer, has to take something, let's say I want to make two-jet protection, a pass protection, and I want to bring that to Madden. Well, we're not going to be able to write that into code unless somebody can write down all the different details and rules about how two-jet protection works. And so being able to break down a concept from your mind and put it on paper and writing so someone else can understand it's really important. And I learned how to do that through my major. In terms of opportunities in journalism, you know, I always thought I would use it to become some sort of sports writer or sports broadcaster. Who knows if those opportunities will ever present themselves to me in the future, but right now I'm extremely happy and proud to be on the Madden team, and I'm going to be on the Madden team as long as they're going to let me.
That's always a great goal. So, you know, we move kind of into that college realm where, you know, your students are kind of starting to figure out what they want to do. They've either named a major, they've got their eyes set on what they want to do, or they're still kind of thinking, you know, there's some different options that I could get to. In sports, and you mentioned that networking is super important. So what tips would you have for somebody who's in college that's kind of looking to get that career path that they want, and how can they utilize networking to their advantage?
I would say lean on your professors. As weird as that sounds, get to know your professors, not just on a professional level, but a personal level. You know, take some time. You know, most college professors have office hours available. Take advantage of those office hours. These are people who have a ton of wisdom and knowledge about their specific field, and most of them are more than willing to answer any questions that you have, whether it be just around your class that you're taking or something beyond. And just a personal experience of mine, I actually I had signed up for a journalism ethics class, I think my third year of college. And the first day I walked in there, my professor and I actually got off on the wrong foot. We had gotten into some arguments about different things that he was trying to talk about in class that day. And it's just the way that I was always challenging everything. And what actually ended up turning out with that professor is we ended up talking so much. We had a really good relationship, and he asked me to be his teacher's assistant the following year. And so that's how I kind of got involved more in the university. Was I became this professor's teaching assistant and actually was helping him teach the class the following semester.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's definitely so many different opportunities out there that can help you further your career, whether it be as something like a teacher's assistant or, you know, going to different conferences and talking to those individuals. But thanks to technology like we're using today and so much else that's out there, you know, anybody who is a young professional or 5, 6, 10 years in their career can continue to better themselves and continue to learn, you know, taking an online class, or they're trying to gain a new skill, design, whatever it might be. So, you know, in your field as a gameplay producer, what are some different things that you do to help you become the best gameplay producer and ratings adjuster that you can be?
Well, ratings adjuster, that one's easy. I watch more football games and talk to more.
That's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah. In terms of video games, I think a lot of people are going to like this answer, but I try to play different types of video games. I try to play other sports games, non-sports games, see what other games are doing, and even try to make contacts with the folks who are making those other games to see if there's better ways that we could be doing things. And there's so many great resources just inside of EA because we make so many great games. I'm always talking to people from the FIFA game or the NHL game, picking their brain and trying to find new ways to go about our business.
You mentioned working for EA Sports and working specifically for Madden, you know, one of the most popular video games, if not right now of all time, for sure. And one thing, and we mentioned it earlier about us at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is we just don't have a bunch of old 30 uniforms on display. We have a full realm of stuff, and that includes a full Madden display. So I'm going to send it back out to our museum to Nathan Martin, the Youth and Education Coordinator, who's in front of that display right now. Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, Jake, thanks for sending it back out here. And like Jake said, I'm in our interactive exhibit. So down here, we've got things centered around other careers, whether it's officiating, it's athletic training. We've got some lockers from our latest class, the class of 2020. But what I'm standing in front of is the display, the exhibit that we feature the newest edition of Madden each year. And actually, if you come in here, typically we would have some chairs and places you could sit and play the game, because we want to give our guests, our visitors, the opportunity to get that experience while they're here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And it's kind of cool. We've got these covers. If you look here, going all the way back when it was just Coach Madden, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Coach John Madden on the cover of the game. And it just goes through the years throughout the 90s. And it wasn't until 2001, Tennessee Titan Eddie George became that first cover athlete for the game of Madden. And it kept going throughout the 2000s. Got future Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk in 03, Ray Lewis in 05. Personally, I probably played Madden 07 the most. There with Sean Alexander. They had the Hall of Fame edition with Coach Madden. Loved seeing Brett Favre there. And then the class member from 2020, Troy Polamalu, there in 2010. And, the game just keeps going. This year you've got Lamar Jackson on the cover. I'm a PlayStation guy, so when I play it, I'm going to play it on the PlayStation. But here at the Hall, you can play it on the Xbox. But it's just one of those things, like Jake said, we don't just want to be a museum that has just a bunch of old, or maybe what some people say is boring. We want to be cutting edge, we want to be innovative, and we want to be interactive. And a part of that is utilizing a great resource like Madden NFL. So I got a question for Clint, and it's related very specifically to his work there on Madden. And what is something that you haven't been able to put into the game of Madden that you're just itching to eventually implement into hopefully a future edition of the game?
Oh, wow. That's a really great question. There's so many. I'm probably going to lean on blocking, because that's where I spend most of my time. So I'm going to go very simply with backside sift and backside hinge block on the Power O. Very, very small thing, but something I've always wanted to put in the game, because it was my favorite block on Power O, to be on the backside of that run play. It was a very simple block: secure the B gap, swivel back, take care of the DN so he doesn't tackle the running back. It was the easiest block in football. So
awesome. That's it has to be those personal touches where you can look and say, hey, you know what, that was my idea. To have that in there has got to be cool. We've got some questions coming in here on Facebook, and the first one I want to ask is this is Donovan from Mississippi, who actually works at Millsaps College as the director of athletic communications. His question is, when you start to rate rookies at the initial release of the game, how do you do that when you haven't seen them play a snap in the NFL?
Well, we watch their college film, and we read their scouting reports, and we look at their pro days and combines. And then what we try to do is compare them, try to project them and compare them to a current NFL player and see where that player may have started. That's really where it starts. And then, any other typical football year that doesn't include COVID-19, the preseason is extremely important in terms of getting those rookies right. But the one thing that I want to make sure to note is that all the rookies have to come in at a certain level. We can't overrate any rookies, because we got to give them room to grow. We know that a lot of them are going to continue to develop, and that's why you typically don't see any rookies above 80, 81. That's kind of the high range for a rookie coming in.
And then kind of along the same lines, another question. This is from Matthew right here in Canton, Ohio. His question is, how do you use and adjust ratings for some intangible assets that guys have, like agility, toughness, awareness, things along those lines?
A little bit of eye test and a little bit of just having some different contacts you can use around the NFL industry. And then over time, you pick things up the more that you're involved with it. But we try to look at kind of weird stats. So toughness, for example, we might see, how long does it take this player to return from injury? Or does this player typically play through injury a little bit more often than someone else? Or at the end of the day, you just call somebody and say, hey, is this guy really tough?
That you gotta use what you know, and the guys who are around these people, especially those rookies that haven't seen a snap in the NFL yet. Kind of along the lines of stuff we do here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Nathan mentioned, Madden is named after the Hall of Fame coach, John Madden. And one can assume that he has to have some sort of, impact on the game even today. How does Coach Madden stay involved with the Madden franchise and with EA Sports?
Yeah, Coach Madden is still very much involved. We meet with him. A group of us go out to see him at least twice every single year. I'm fortunate enough to be a part of that group. And what we do is the first meeting of the year, we kind of give him the pitch of what we want to build, and then he gives us feedback, what he likes, what he doesn't like. Coach Madden is such an honest guy, as I'm sure you guys know. He will be very straightforward and tell you if he doesn't like something, and that's great. It's a great conversation to have with him. And then the second one, that when we go out, we basically review, hey, this is what we told you we were going to build. This is how it turned out. What do you think? And then, we talk shop for the rest of the day. Those meetings are by far the greatest experiences that I've ever had working at EA Sports.
And along the same lines at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we mentioned those values at the beginning: commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And, being a former player, the game is more than just the X's and O's. It's more than just the Madden rating, that you do all this stuff on the field. It's about what the game of football can teach you about life and teach you about your life off the field. So how do you think the sport, and what are some life lessons you may have taken from the game that you apply to not only your life, but your career now as a gameplay producer?
So that's a really important question. I'm glad you asked it. We spent a lot of time talking about school and contacts and how to network and internships and resumes, and all that stuff is really important. But if there's one thing that you all can take away from what we're talking about today, it's just being a humble, team-working, collaborative individual that treats everybody with respect. All of the things that we talked about before got my foot in the door with the Madden team, but what really kept me here was my ability to work with others, work from people from all different walks of life, people that have had completely different experiences with me, and just come in with some humility, being ready to learn, being willing to work with others, being a, what's the right word I'm looking for? A servant leader more than anything. As a leader, our job as a producer is to facilitate everyone else to be the best versions of themselves. And if you get caught up and have a big ego, or you have issues working with people, you can't facilitate that. So I think that's the most important thing in looking for any role, whether it be in sports or outside of sports, is be human first and treat everybody with respect.
And I think that goes for not only, careers and school and life off the field, but that message can be seen so well in the game of football. We talk about the huddle and how much the huddle represents that. It doesn't matter what your background is, where you grew up, what your skin color is. None of that matters. If you're one of the best 11 that can do the job, you're going to be in that huddle to move that ball forward. And I think that represents so much, in life as well, that, if you can get the job done and you can be that team player, be that servant leader, none of that stuff matters. It's about the work you can do in your life and off the field. So it's great to hear that the game of football has had an impact, on your life off field. As soon, I played, granted I wasn't good enough to play past high school, but you still, all the life lessons that you learned from the game, stick with you for a very long time. And, you mentioned a lot about your job and things you get to do on a day-to-day basis, and I know that this is going to might be a tough question, but if you had to pick one thing that you love the most about your job, what would that one thing be that you choose?
Oh yeah, like I said, it's by far the opportunity to meet with Hall of Fame coach, broadcaster John Madden, Coach Madden, as we call him. The amount of wisdom and knowledge that he has about the sport is just amazing to be around, and he'll tell you honestly everything that he thinks about anything going on inside the NFL. And just having the opportunity to have a personal relationship with him is really special, and it's all because of a video game. Yeah. If you'd asked me as a kid, you'd get to go watch football with Coach Madden every year when you're an adult. Man, I would have said, how do I get that? So definitely meeting Coach Madden is my favorite part of my job.
That's cool. Yeah, being a Hall of Famer, we kind of get to see him in that realm as well. And it's funny because he'll talk about, how people know him. If they know him as Coach Madden, they know, kind of how old he is. If they know him as the broadcaster, that kind of gives them another demographic. And then you get to people who are my age that know Coach Madden as the video game. So it is kind of cool that he's had an influence on so many people's lives, but not just in one way, in so many different ways as a coach, a broadcaster, and then a player as well. When Madden started out way back in the 90s, it obviously is a ton different than it is today. So if you could, is there any, and this can be a couple points, but what are some ways that your industry, the video game industry, has changed since you kind of got your foot in the door back then as an intern with EA?
I think two ways, just in my 8 years in the industry. I think number one is it's become a much more social event for people, and probably no more displayed than right now during a pandemic. Video games are ways that people are connecting with and or meeting friends in their lives, and it's become a social area where people would used to go tailgate together or go out to a restaurant for dinner or go have coffee somewhere. Those interactions are now happening more in video game platforms, which is something that definitely has changed the way that we develop games. And then secondly, I would say specifically to sports gaming, the desire from our fans and all other sports games fans for uber realism is increasing every year. The expectations to replicate what they're able to see on TV or experience in their social media lives, everything that they consume in sports, they want to see reflected as realistic as possible in these video games. And that's one of the reasons why I love what I do.
You mentioned the pandemic, and it was a terrible thing still going on, and it's sad to see how people have had to adjust to that. You think about how the impact that it's had on so many different people, so many different careers, and you mentioned it even had an impact on what you do. And so how have you and the people you work with had to adjust a little bit due to the pandemic and things you've had to do to kind of either rush stuff to get it done or bring some stuff out that could be utilized during this time that we're in?
It's been a scramble of a year. We started working from home in mid-March. And just the beginning, I remember just thinking, like, are we really going to work from home? This isn't going to last more than a couple of weeks, is it? And it lasted a long time, and here we are still working from home. And we were able to get our entire team up and running. We're talking, 3 or 4 floors in a building of people up and running remotely with their machines within about a week, which was just an impressive feat in and of itself. Over the long run, we're getting, we probably hit about 80 to 90% of our total capacity. But I think the hardest part was just not being around your teammates. There's so many creative ideas in a collaborative environment. Being around creative people spawns more creativity. And having to do all of that through Zoom and remote, it doesn't feel that personal sense of being around your team is probably what we miss the most. But we certainly have gotten a lot of mileage out of Zoom and Slack, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. I know Zoom has become, people use it pretty much every day. I know when we were working remotely, it was once, twice a day, there was somebody on Zoom talking to somebody about something. I'm glad you said, the part about creativity, because I think it does, when you do work in that, that community and work with your staff at the office and that camaraderie that's built, I think that's a huge part to develop stuff. And I think especially in your field, because you do have to stay on top of, your game all the time, because somebody is always going to try and come out with something better. So I think, having that camaraderie is great. You talk a lot about your job, and somebody that is maybe my age, maybe in college, that's looking to get into video game design, video game producing. What is, and this may go for any career, what do you think is one thing that those individuals can do to kind of separate themselves, from the pack and show that they're worthy, they're worth that position in a field like yours?
I'll give you 2 things, one technical, one not technical. I think really important for, most games, certainly our game, is you have to have a unique passion for gaming, specifically whatever game it is that you want to work for. Having the ability and experience to play your game deeply and kind of know where the dark corners are and know what things can improve and understand the holistic vision of the game is always super valuable to any game development role. And then on the technical side, there's a lot of really great engines that you can just download online, like a Unity or an Unreal engine, and you can start to get familiar with how those tools work and actually build some of your own mini games. And experience in that is absolutely valuable, because those engines that you can get online are very similar to a number of the engines that the industry is using. So picking up stuff like that is super valuable if you want to get into video games.
It definitely seems like you love what you do, and you love your job, and you love waking up and going to work every day. But why do you do what you do, or what motivates you in your career? What motivates you to wake up and go into the office every day?
I want to win, man. Like at the end of the day, that's what this is for me, and that's why I want to always work in sports, and I want to work in the NFL. And what that was as an NFL player was keep getting better. I want to win a starting spot. I want to win a game. I want to win a championship. I want to get drafted. That has crossed over into video games, and now my goals are I want to make the most authentic NFL game that's ever been made. I want to be the best sports video game on the market. I want to be the best video game, period. Like all of those things continue to drive me. And if we're able to achieve those things while I'm a part of the team, fantastic. If we're not, you know what they say, if you shoot for the moon and miss, you're still among the stars, right?
Absolutely. We're kind of reaching the time where we're going to wrap things up. So we got time for just a couple more questions. What would you say are some secrets to success, in your opinion?
Secrets to success. I'm going to lean on my previous answer a little bit. Just being a good person and treating everyone with respect. Humility is always appreciated in any company, especially ours. That's number one. And collaboration is number two. You got to have the ability to work with anybody on anything at any time. I would say that's probably the one that I call out.
And I guess, and this is a question we like to ask, when we do programs with Gold Jackets, when we have kids here at the hall, when we do programs just like we're doing today, one question we always like to ask is, if there's a piece of advice, anybody watching today, high school, college, young professional, parent, teacher, whoever it might be, if there's one piece of advice you would leave somebody with today, about maybe how to become the best that they can be. And you've touched on a lot of great points and a lot of values we have here at the hall. What is that last piece of advice that you would like to leave everybody with here today?
Goal setting. It's been a huge part of my life, and I started doing it when I was in high school. It really started small. I just started setting daily goals. And what that allowed me to do was at least get some sense that I had accomplished something that day, whether it was small, hey, make sure you work out today, or big, hey, I want to make all my free throws in my high school basketball game or whatever it is. I try to set a goal for myself once a day or once a week, and that has just grown throughout my life. I'm now 37 years old, so I guess I've been doing that, 20 years now. I've been just setting goals for myself. And you're not going to achieve them all, but having that pathway to whatever your end goal may be, it's about the journey, right? It's not about the destination. And so those goals are going to guide you on your journey to ultimately get where you want to go.
Awesome. And I think my last question here today before we wrap up, and I think it's what everybody wants to know. Are you good at Madden?
For a simulation-minded player, yes. Can I compete with the pros online? Absolutely not.
You got that inside track, though, so you do have a little bit of an advantage over everybody else. So with that, we're going to wrap up our program today, this installment, the first ever of the Before the Snap series, and with Clint Oldenburg, the gameplay producer and Madden's rating adjuster for Madden NFL. Clint, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the series. We appreciate you connecting in and speaking to everybody who watched today, about your career and how you got to where you are. But before we leave, everybody, just a few quick announcements. I want to make sure everybody who's watching today, make sure you tune in to all the Hall of Fame social media channels for the most up-to-date stories and content that this great game has to offer. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Hall of Fame's podcast, The Mission. Coworker of mine, great friend, Jameer Howerton's the host of that. He's done programs with former NFL legends. Jason Wright, the new president of the Washington football team, he just got to interview him. So make sure you tune into that, hear all the great interviews that Jameer is doing. And stay tuned to all those platforms. We know the school year's kicking off, so we're going to be doing our Pro Football Hall of Fame Heart of a Hall of Famer program powered by Extreme Networks here coming up. And we'll be live with different Gold Jackets all throughout the school year, where you can learn, just like what Clint told everybody today, learn how the values of the game make our Hall of Famers great, not only on the field, but off the field as well. So, again, I want to just let everybody know next week we're going to be live again right at noon. On September 18th, we're going to have the Hall of Fame Zone, Michelle Norris, who's senior director of Gold Jacket Relations here at the Hall of Fame, to talk a little bit about her career and some of the experiences she has had with all of the Gold Jackets who we have our members here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So as I said at the beginning, Clint, thank you so much for participating. You know, the game of football would not look like it is today without your influence, both from your playing career as well as your career that you have today with the Madden NFL franchise. So I want everybody to know football isn't just something that takes place on Thursday, Sunday, or Monday. It's a 365 day job, and there's so much work that goes into making that final product great. For in Clint's example, so much that goes into making that Madden NFL that you pop in your Xbox or your PlayStation the best that it can be. So from myself, our youth and education staff, Jerry, Jake, John Kendall, who was part of today, and everybody here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, thank you so much for everything that you do for the game of football, and thank you so much for being a part of our program today.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a real honor.
All right, that's going to be it from us today. We're again, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week for our program with Michelle Norris. So we'll see everybody. Thank you. All right, it's over. I had to make sure the live stream stopped. Because normally we just end it and then I don't get to talk to anybody afterwards. So I tried something new today. So it worked. So
yeah, it seemed to go pretty smooth. I apologize for some of that scratching. My dog was pawing at the door. That's why I was like fidgeting, trying to get him to stop.
No, it's all good. You know, that's part of life now. You know, with everybody being on Zoom and kids running in. I think it was NFL Live the other day where Schefter's dog was making noise, or was it Get Up? I think it was Get Up where Schefter's dog was making noise and Greenberg had no idea what was making it. So Schefter pulled his dog up on screen. So, you know, it's just part of life today for sure. So what were your thoughts on, you know, this being the first one? Is there anything that we can improve or different ways or avenues that we can kind of take, you know, moving forward?
Oh man, that was really good. I don't have any criticism for you at all.
Well, I appreciate that.
You guys showing that stuff of mine that you have collected there, that was pretty amazing.
Awesome. No, yeah, that was something. Now everybody that we have, you know, in the program obviously isn't going to have time spent in the NFL, so we're not going to be able to do that with everybody. But we wanted to make sure to do that for you for sure.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. That made my day.
What was draft day like for you? I guess, yeah. What was your draft day like?
Mine was interesting because I actually did not expect to be drafted. I was looking at a free agent, and so I watched a little bit. I guess at the time it was 2 days. Round one was on Saturday. I watched a little bit of round one, and then I went golfing, and then day two started, and I knew I had a chance, but really wasn't expecting it. And I started getting calls in like the fourth round, like late in the fourth round, but it was from 3 or 4 teams called me and said, hey, we're not going to draft you, but we would really love to sign you right after the draft, so be aware. I was like, okay. And then out of nowhere, the Patriots called there late in the fifth. It was a compensatory pick. And I didn't even know that I was on the Patriots board. And they said, we're taking you. You cool with that? I was like, absolutely. Coach Belichick got on the line. He's like, we're going to take you with our next pick. We think you got a bright future in front of you. Are you ready to join the team? And I was like, yep. And then my name popped up on the screen while I was on the phone. And that was a highlight of my life.
I bet. I got Nathan in here with me now too.
Yeah. Thanks again, Clint. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was great, guys. Hopefully I did all right for you.
No, we appreciate it. You know, this was cool for us. I know kind of, you know, we've been working with a lot with NFL clubs and, you know, getting some of their staff, but this was our job. Our goal was to show as many different careers as possible. So this was a great way to kick everything off and start the program.
Great. Well, I hope you get some good feedback on it. I certainly had a good time and you asked some really good questions.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. So what I'll do is I'll get this, you know, all export and everything, and I'll send you, I'll put it up on YouTube, but I won't list it. And send you the link to make sure you get the okay from your guys there that needs to okay that before we're live.
That should be pretty easy.
Okay.
There wasn't anything that you guys covered that I would imagine they'd say don't show that. So
okay. All right, I'll get up on YouTube then and make sure you have the link, and then it'll live there, forever until someone decides to take it down.
All good, man.
All right, thank you so much, Clint. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yep, we'll see ya.